Today we're going to start to build some shallow 3D scenery along the Pocatello subdivision on my N-scale layout. That's coming right up. Hi, I'm Roy Smith. Today's video is number 6 in a series of videos about the Pocatello subdivision on my N-scale layout. I will include the link to the Pocatello playlist in the description down below and on the end screen of this video so that you can go back and watch any of the previous episodes in this series that you may have missed. In today's episode, I'm going to show you how I'm creating some shallow 3D scenery on the subdivision. I'm going to try to squeeze this shallow 3D scenery into a very narrow space. I hope that you will find the techniques I'm about to share with you to be useful in doing scenery work on your own layout. This is the kind of material I try to bring to you in new videos every Saturday morning. So if you're new here, why don't you just go ahead and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. And while you're at it, hit the little bell icon so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. Let me begin by showing you once again the photo taken in southeastern Idaho, which inspired the scenery work I'm doing today. Now, I'm no geologist, but what you see in this photo appears to be a series of lava flows, one on top of the other. On my layout, I hope to depict this remnant of ancient volcanic activity that lasted for millions of years in southeastern Idaho. Here's what this area of my layout looked like before I began to work on it. In my last video, that is episode number 5 in the Pocatello series, I explained that I want to eliminate the eyesore of unfinished scenery at the west end of Echo Canyon. That's why I'm jumping into this scenery project on the Pocatello sub right now. Well, I've been working on this scene, and here's what it looks like today. You can see that it's still a work in progress. I'd like to say just a word about the difference between the terms backdrop and background. I know we use these two terms interchangeably, so any distinction that I try to make between them may be purely semantical, but for the sake of this video, let me go ahead and try to distinguish between the two terms. Let's just say that the term backdrop applies to the masonite or other material we install on the back of our layouts. The backdrop may include a blue sky and a photo backdrop glued directly on the masonite. Or it may include scenery painted directly on the backdrop if you are artistically inclined. And let's say that the term background applies to the three-dimensional scenery and structures that we put just in front of the backdrop, or in this case, between the track and the backdrop. Of course, the foreground would include the tracks and any scenery appearing on this side of the tracks. Again, my distinction between the backdrop and background may be arbitrary, but I try to distinguish between the two terms in order to explain the work I'm doing in this and in upcoming videos. This is the material I'm using for scenery in this area. It's 1/4 inch thick white styrofoam. There's only 1 inch of space between the track and the masonite backdrop at its most narrow point. Altogether, this section of the layout is only 6 inches deep from the front edge of the layout to the masonite backdrop. So the scenery in this very limited space has to be really shallow. I will do as much of the cutting and carving of the styrofoam as I can outside to reduce the amount of white styrofoam beads that get all over my layout. Then I'll bring it back inside. Now I've reinstalled the styrofoam on the layout, and here I am, hard at work doing the finer carving. As you can see, I'm creating a big mess. I hope this turns out to be something more than just a pile of white styrofoam on my layout. As I do this, my main concern continues to be the very narrow space I'm working in. To effectively create the step-like appearance of the layers of lava, I would like to have 3 to 5 inches of depth to work in. But as is always the case in model railroading, we have to do the best we can in the space we have. In a moment, though, I'm going to run some passenger trains through here to make sure there is enough clearance between the tracks and the 3D scenery. Of course, if it doesn't work, I can always rip it out and replace it with a photo backdrop. I'm certainly not going to try to hand paint the scene directly onto the masonite, because I'm no artist and it would look like a 3-year-old painted it. Again, I have hung this photo of the prototype on the backdrop to guide me as I try to create the shallow scenery. Now I've done some painting of the scenery. I began by applying a base coat of desert yellow latex paint to the entire scene. Then I applied various washes of black, stone gray, burnt umber, and ochre yellow to the lava. Now I'm dry brushing the lava with white paint to give it some highlights. There's still a lot of work to do on this scene. For example, I have to do more carving and add washes of paint to the yellow hills as well as ground foam. So far, I'm not ready to rip it out in order to try some other scenery technique, but I am going to stop working at this point and run 2 passenger trains through the scene to double check the clearance between the track and the shallow 3D scenery. Here we go. It's a little close, but the overhanging cars aren't bumping into the scenery as they go through the curve. So far, it appears that the shallow 3D scenery will work in this space. In fact, this kind of shallow scenery may be ideal for limited spaces on our layouts. But will it work in an extremely limited space such as this one on my layout? We'll see as I continue to work on this scene in upcoming episodes. Remember to subscribe if you're new here so that you don't miss those upcoming episodes. Until next time then, thanks for watching and happy railroading. I'm Roy Smith, and I will see you again very soon.